Welcome to r/OffMyChest. So this is a story from a 40-year-old man that regrets fighting for 50-50 custody of his children. I got divorced 14 years ago when my children were 2 and 8. She had fidelity issues that I'm not going to get into. It was pretty hard on me. I remember she took them over to her parents and refused to let me see them for like a month. When she did bring them back, they were both crying and asking why they couldn't see me. You see, I was basically their primary caretaker. She worked third shift as a nurse, and so she would get up and get one off to school, and then the other she would feed and put in the playpen while she went back to sleep. I would get home and basically feed them both a snack, make dinner, clean, and give them baths, and put them to bed. To be honest, we were both dead broke at the time, and I told her I didn't care how much debt I'd put us into if she didn't agree to 50-50. She agreed it was all downhill after that. She agreed and it was all downhill after that. The kids spent the days with her mom or dad, and they were always doing fun things with them. From then on, it was always fighting and crying, not wanting to be with me because I was always at work or sleeping, or whatever the excuses was. I was alone and broke, and we never did anything fun. It was so funny while their mom was always taking vacations or taking them places. I was one buying them clothes, shoes, school supplies, games because their mom was always broke. Anyway, the whole thing bred a lot of resentment in them, and not being able to co-parent didn't help. So, to get to the present, my oldest is off at college, and I am the one always reaching out. I invite him home for dinner when family comes when there is a special occasion, but he doesn't text or call. I know with Father's Day approaching, I might get a text but in the evening, and that'll be it. It also irradiates me that he is always visiting his mom, who is 20 miles away, but doesn't visit me. Mind you, my youngest is a whole other story. Ever since he was maybe 5 or 6, he just stopped listening to me or caring. In fact, even his mom has said she can't deal with him many times. He gets in trouble in school, terrible grades, so he is now in summer school for the next 2 years, so he can maybe graduate on time. Got into many fights. At home, he refuses to do any chores, even if I give him an incentive. He has been in therapy, we have switched schools, nothing matters or helps. He has now called the police on me twice and CPS once. Once because after I asked him to do one thing after he got home from school, and I asked him nicely 5 times, way more than I would have. The 6th time I blew up and started yelling. Had to meet with CPS because when I told him his room was so disgusting he'd be better off in a tent outside. Shit, when I was a kid, that wouldn't have even been a threat. That would have been fun. Cried to the CPS lady, telling her that all I saw for his future was jail, and that leads to last night. Picked him up from summer school, brought him Takis and soda because they don't do lunch. Oh, that's nice. Everything was fine. Talked about what movie we should go to this weekend. Then at dinner, he started arguing with me over something that he has no idea about. Like he asked me to explain, then started to argue. I mean, he just knows how to push my buttons. I told him that he was making me so angry. He was done eating and needed to go to his room. He picked up plate, and I said to him he wasn't eating in his room and to put the plate down. He refused, so I swept the contents off and slammed them on the table. 15 minutes later, the police are there to do a welfare check because I'm throwing plates at him. Whoa. He texted his mom and called the police, so I guess he has only done it once. Mind you, I haven't laid a hand on him since he was little, and I figured out spanking didn't work. The absolute icing on the cake was we have a main entry and side entry. While one of the officers was questioning me at the main door, I saw him leave out the side door with a giant effing smile on his face. The police took him to his mom's. Sorry for the long post, but TLDR, I wish I had never fought so hard 50-50 custody of my children. I should have never just done every other weekend and been that fun dad. I could have missed all the BS that I have been through, and the ex could have dealt with it. It wasn't worth all the fighting with the ex over parenting. It wasn't worth always being broke, no fun, and a bad guy. Wow. Well, that's a crazy story to start off with. But my take of the whole thing, honestly, on top of some spelling issues, he definitely has some other issues he needs to work on. I think he kind of, especially like if he was actually throwing plates, that's pretty wild, especially at 40 years old to be reacting that way to something your child did. I mean, you clearly wouldn't want your kid to act that way, so I don't know why you would portray that behavior. Mind you, you said it's the only time it's happened, but regardless, I mean, definitely choose who you're gonna be as your partner. That's wisely. It's definitely a lifelong commitment, to say the least. I think they both need to grow up and just be parents at the end of the day. But there's a lot to unpack there. I don't think that regretting 50-50 custody should be the problem. I think that there's a lot of other things that led up to that and that were after that should be addressed before saying you regret 50-50 custody, in my opinion. But other than that, let's move on to the comments. Before getting to the comments, I didn't mean regretting 50-50 custody should be the problem, but you shouldn't really be regretting that. I mean, it is your kids at the end of the day. But let's go into the top 3 comments. Now, first one is, no matter how hard this situation is, you shouldn't be triggered this much by a child. You're supposed to be the mature one, and you cannot set the same standards for him as an adult. He's probably pushing your buttons to get a reaction out of you because he doesn't feel seen. I recommend family therapy with the mom. It's time you two get over your differences and start working as a team for your children's sake. Agreed. Clock it. At this age, it may be too late. That was a response to that. Second comment. I'm not sure how to phrase this, so forgive me if it comes off a bit harsh, but if you see giving your children a snack, meal, and a bath as being a primary caretaker, if you spanked your kids, and if all you did when you had them was work and sleep, I kind of get why they resent you. And letting your kid rile you up like that probably doesn't help. My mom did not have anything when we grew up, but she always managed to be the fun parent just by spending time with us, drawing with us, engaging with us, making things from scratch, taking us out in nature, etc. Did you ever do stuff like this with your kids? Good question. You definitely got to be creative when you don't have a lot of money. For what it's worth, I'm not judging you any harder than your ex. She seems so much worse, and I'm sure she has made this whole journey a lot harder on you than it could have been, 100%. I mean, that's what I was saying. At the end of the day, they need to be parents together, and it shouldn't just be on one person. It seems like she definitely has some growing up to do if all she does is travel and go on trips. Unless she can afford that lifestyle, then that's different. I hope your kids will grow up and realize you did what you could. I also recommend therapy to learn emotional regulation and maybe connecting with your kids on an emotional level. I think that's great. I think he seems to have a way of connecting with his kids, and especially the oldest definitely seems to want nothing to do with him, but I don't know if that's influence on the mom or what. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know, of course. And then third, I mean this in the nicest way possible, but I think you need individual therapy. I always had the respect for the parent of mine who had to work harder and sacrifice more. Being at work all the time to provide made me feel closer to them and value the time we did get. Your emotional maturity is leaking in this post, and I think there's a lot more than just not doing fun stuff that are causing your children to be distant from you. I think are all pretty insightful comments for sure. Let's go on to the next story. Taking in my disabled sister-in-law is ruining my marriage. Let's get into story number 2. I'll start with some info. I, 30-year-old trans man, and wife, 29-year-old non-binary, wife is a preferred title, have been together for 14 years. We live in Alberta, Canada. We've had an acreage with some cats, dogs, horses, and chickens. We've worked really hard to get where we are, and some months are just skimming by. But I got together pre-transition and have grown together as a couple because of it. I love my wife more now than I ever have, more than I thought I could ever love someone. They're the most caring and loving person I've ever known. I should note my dad, my wife, and my sister-in-law are all type 1 diabetics. This will be very important later. Just know diabetes is something I'm very familiar with and was never an issue with meeting my wife. I've helped them through their highs and lows of the disease, literally. I've known their sister, I'll call her S, since she was about 10 years old. I love her like a little sister. Now they lost their dad, a young, and in the last couple of years lost their mom. Oh, sorry, they lost their dad young, and in the last couple of years they lost their mom. That's so sad. It's been hard, so when S lost her vision due to complications with her diabetes, it was a no-brainer to move her in with us. Jeez, I suggested it. At first, it was amazing. We were really helping S, but as time went on, I think depression set in. She never finished applying for L, so she can't pay us for anything, which is okay, but living in rural Canada, the specialists she needs are 3 hours away. I'm the only driver in the house. All my SL and VL goes to this. Every day it's how bad S's day was, how she couldn't do anything. Her diabetes is slipping again. We've given her jobs to do around the house instead of paying, but she doesn't do them. And any time I take her into town for the few appointments that can be in town, she wants me to go to McDonald's. Now, she pays for hers, but then I'm late for work because she took forever to get ready in the first place. And if I pick her up from socializing with her friends, which I encourage her to go see, and I'm to pick her up at, say, 5 p.m., she'll make me wait in the car until 5:30 p.m. I work 2 jobs to support us. I was going to drop one before he took S in, but now I can't. I work long hours, and when I get home, I just want to do my chores and watch a show or play video games for 1 hour before bed. But if something S doesn't want to do, she leaves her bedroom, which I think is fine, but my wife sure doesn't. We used to be able to have open communication, but my wife is so paranoid of hurting S's feelings that I can't say anything in our house. But then lately, she's been coming into town every day, and she's no longer staying overnight with her friends. My whole life, day in and day out, is for S. I can't have a bad day, or everyone gets sheepish and condescending. I've been spending more time outside with the horses and chickens. I don't know how to have a conversation without upsetting S. I don't know if we're helping or enabling anymore, and I don't know if this is ruining things between my wife and I, and I think it is. But I can't voice that. I've tried, and then they're walking on eggshells. I don't want that, but I'm having major stress at work lately, and the frustration bubbling. I think they meant to say I can feel that frustration bubbling in my chest every day. Edit, I forgot to mention S's age. She's 23. She's been losing her sight since she was 18. That's really unfortunate. Every time I bring up issues with money/relationship with my wife, they start crying or rage at themselves, and then I deflect. I know I'm doing wrong here too. I tell them it's okay and I can change the subject. My wife works 1 job, I've always worked 2, and that's my choice up to now. Finally, I have offered to help S with L, but she never wants to during their open call hours. She says she called when I'm at work and they're looking into it, but it's been half a year, and I know when my brother needed it, it took 2 weeks, not months. Whoa. Now here's my take. Well, if you know the last story was a lot to unpack, here it is definitely a whole lot more. Now I definitely feel bad for S. That's definitely a super unfortunate situation to be in, especially I'm sure she was super dependent on her parents being blind or losing her sight, or I don't know how severe her blindness is away, but also the need to go to specialists constantly. I mean, she definitely needs a caretaker or some sort of assistance, but that's definitely hard for you to juggle along with, managing a household. And so I don't know what the best route to be. I mean, I think it may be more on your plate than you can really handle at that point, and getting some sort of professional help would be the best route. Now, how you go about that, I have no clue. And I know it's Canada, so some of these things I don't really know, like EL or SL or VL. And I'm guessing L is like a sort of job that she can do, or maybe some government assistance in Canada. But regardless of what it is, 6 months is a crazy amount of time to be in the process of doing that. I know governments are slow, but not necessarily that slow. I wish you the best on that situation, but that's definitely a crazy amount to be dealing with, and a very unique situation that I'm sure anybody would struggle with. Let's move on to the comments. Now, the top 3 comments are: have a conversation where you lay no blame. Just say you're struggling and could do with some help. That'd be the best route, Asking for some help outside of just taking it upon yourself. It's definitely a hard thing to do, just managing it all on your own. Now, what's the long-term plan for her care? This is comment section number 2, sorry. What's the long-term plan for her care? Well, it's admirable that you were generous enough to let her live with you, but without a long-term plan that includes structured day with her own independence and responsibilities and some respite for you, this is a recipe for disaster. It will ruin not just your relationship and mental health, but your sister-in-law's future prospects too. She can't be happy with zero structure or accountabilities and everything handed to her on a plate begrudgingly. I think you need to find a time when it's just you and your wife. Maybe go out for a meal, get out of the house, in parentheses, where you can have a frank conversation about all of this. Yeah, I think definitely going to your wife, since it's your sister-in-law, would be the best situation, getting what they have to say. And a long-term plan, I don't have any expertise in this situation, but that definitely sounds like the best route to go is getting a long-term plan so structure for her and what she needs to do, because she definitely needs some sort of assistance. Being nearly blind and her diabetes is definitely a major factor in her life. So no structure. I think absolutely let it be 101. The commenter definitely has a good point of view. I don't think there's a long-term care plan, is response of the original poster. Now, I don't think S's eyes, they said, I don't think there is a long-term care plan. I don't think S's eyes are going to get much better, but there is a surgery she could get. It's a long shot and would only fix one eye, but she'll never be able to drive. That's pretty unfortunate. She's basically written to be blind for the rest of her life. That's hard for anybody to deal with, I'm sure. And then the third top comment is: you're on a path that will destroy your physical, mental, and financial health. You care more about S than she cares for herself. She has zero respect for you or your time. Not only is she asking you to sit in a car because she can't be bothered to be on time, she's asking you to work at a second job because she can't be bothered to complete L paperwork. Get yourself to therapy immediately and figure out why you think you deserve to be treated so poorly by the people you love and care for. I think that's definitely the most real and in-your-face response that there's been on here. And I think it might be what needs to happen. There's definitely some mental health issues she's going with, losing both her mom so recently and also her dad so young. But at a certain extent, it doesn't always fall onto you, and by allowing that to happen, you're definitely putting yourself in a situation where your mental, physical, and financial is going to be affected. All right, story number 3. My girlfriend of 2 years cheated on me with a man, and I don't think I'll ever get over what she said. Man, a lot of relationship stuff. I don't even know why I'm posting this. I think I just need to get it out somewhere because I can't stop thinking about it. Also, English isn't my first language, so sorry if there are mistakes. Granted, I'll give you the slack. I'm a masked lesbian. My ex is bi. We were together for a little over 2 years. I genuinely thought she was the person I was going to spend my life with. We talked about moving in together, getting married someday, where we'd live, everything. Part of what hurts so much is that being with her wasn't easy for me. My family never really accepted that I was gay. There were arguments, relatives who stopped talking to me, endless comments about how I'd eventually end up with a man anyway. I defended our relationship every single time. I fought with people I loved because I believed in us. Meanwhile, her family was completely supportive. They welcomed me immediately and treated me like part of the family. I honestly felt more accepted in her house than my own. I'm so effing embarrassed right now. A few weeks ago, she started acting distant. She took forever to answer messages, stopped wanting to call or meet, and always seemed busy. Then, last Friday, she disappeared completely around midnight. I called asking if she was okay. Instead of her answering, a guy answered asking who I was. Ooh. I told him I was her girlfriend. He responded with, her girlfriend? Followed by, oh, that's awkward. My stomach dropped. I asked who he was. He told me he was hanging out with his girlfriend. When I asked to speak with her, he laughed and said, wait, you're seriously her girlfriend? I told him yes. He laughed again and just said, wow, she's in the shower. Oh. The next day I met up with her. She admitted she's been seeing him and said she missed being with men. I asked why she cheated instead of just breaking up with me. She actually apologized at first, which made me think she felt bad. And then she said, I'm sorry, but you could never satisfy me the way men do. Holy shit. I honestly wish she had just screamed at me instead. After that, she started comparing us. She talked about how he was taller, stronger, and more attractive, and how she always seen herself ending up with a man eventually. The thing that completely broke me was when she said, your family was right. I asked what she meant, and she said, come on, did you really think I was going to marry you? The way she said it wasn't angry, it was confused. Like she genuinely couldn't understand why I'd believe all the things she told me for 2 years. Wow. 2 years. Ever since then, I kept replaying everything in my head. I keep wondering if she ever meant any of the things she said to me. I keep wondering whether she spent our entire relationship knowing she'd eventually leave me for a man. I feel so inferior. I always wished I was a man. I'll never be enough. Damn. Wow. Definitely a lot to unpack there. As everything else along with this. I'll never will think that cheating is right. I think that if you're going to want to be with somebody else or sleep with somebody else, you should probably just leave your partner, especially if they're not okay with it. And, saying those things is pretty messed up. I would think that her feeling the way she is completely understandable. And I would feel pretty terrible if someone said those things to me. Not that, I'm a man, I would never be in that situation, so I can understand why she's feeling that way, and I think that she definitely has some things she needs to work through herself, but between the two, I think she's better off without her, because I wouldn't want to be someone around me that's saying those terrible things. I mean, she's clearly not a good person to be around, so you're going to be a better individual without them. Absolutely. Terrible situation. I'm sorry that happened to you. On to the comments. Alrighty, top 3 comments are, she was so cruel. She used her cruel to justify her unfaithfulness. That's on her, not on you. There is someone out there for you. Please don't give up on yourself. Someone replied, imagine cheating and still feeling the need to win the breakup with a PowerPoint presentation. This is a lot about her, not you. Absolutely. It says how terrible of a person she is by really just rubbing it in and not even just leaving it at that. I mean, she already had, I'm sure, broken your heart by you finding out over FaceTime that she's cheating. Number 2, comparing you to him is cruel in an unhinged way. Sorry you've been through that, mate. Someone top replied, yeah, seriously, it's not just me. When I saw that, it made me sick. Seriously, punch-worthy. Absolutely. That's insane. Please try not to internalize what she said. It's not true. It's her trying to justify that there's a reason she should be with him and not that you're actually worse. I'm so sorry. I hope you're kind to yourself. It'll take time, but it will get better even if it feels hopeless now. Kind words to say. I like this comment. Number 3, top comment. You don't have to take a cheater seriously. Absolutely. She's clearly not a trustworthy individual. Why would you trust anything she has to say? On to the next. All right. Sorry, I had to count the stories. 4th story. I thought my dad was an alcoholic. Turned out he was just being kind. Oh. My dad died years ago, and I think he was a great dad overall, but I thought he was also a bit of a selfish guy. He never really took care of himself. He ate all sorts of junk, smoked a bunch, and liked to drink. For most of my life, it wasn't outright disruptive. He'd really just get drunk at weddings and be out there dancing like Majestic Walrus until 2 a.m. All the aunties loved it. Me, not so much, since dragging his drunk butt home was never fun. My mom could never handle it all alone, while my sister was usually equally messed up or worse. But again, most days he didn't really drink and was always very full of joy and fun to be around, and always tried to show me and my sister a good time. He was also the first person to take my wife feel like she was part of the family. basically immediately accepting her as his daughter and including her in all the plans. When my own kids are old enough and start bringing her partners around, I only hope I can make them feel accepted like that. Very kind. To the point, my dad liked to drink, but mostly did it socially. I remember, though, that when I was 10 or 11 years old, his drinking actually got really bad, and he'd sometimes be too drunk to drive my best friend at the time home. When she came to visit, forcing her to sleep over in my sister's room, I didn't really mind it at the time since sleepovers were fun, and we'd really just go to school together the next day. But I was kind of embarrassed and annoyed, but he eventually got over it, as I recall. So when I actually was old enough to call him out on stuff, it was no longer an issue. And me and that friend weren't really close anymore. Different high schools, so it didn't really matter anyway. Now, I ran into that friend a few days ago, and we struck up a conversation. She asked about my parents, and I told her how they both died over the last few years. Wow. She took it really hard, almost too hard, and honestly, I asked her about it, and then she told me my parents basically saved her life. Whoa. What happened was that back when my dad wasn't quote-unquote alcoholic, my friend's parents were going through a really bad divorce. Her father basically left her mom and her mom with nothing. Left her and her mom with nothing. That's terrible. They could barely afford food. My parents wanted to help since my mom and hers were friends, but her mom refused charity, so instead they just came up with this really weird scheme. Basically, whenever my friend was over, which was often those days, my dad would drink too much and couldn't drive, so she had to stay over, which meant my friend got dinner, breakfast, and then lunch for school. My mom would go, "Oh no, I cooked too much food," and volunteer to pick us up from school before shoving some Tupperware filled with food into my friend's arms. When she dropped her off at home, it was only a few weeks. Oh, shoving some food into her friend's arms when she dropped her off at home. That makes sense. It was only a few weeks, many years ago, until her mom got back on her feet. My friend only put the pieces together years later through her mom, but I just never realized my parents did that for her, and thought my dad just had a drinking problem for a while. I could have spent my entire life just not knowing what this happened, and we don't really have a lot of family left, so no one would ever know. So, I obviously told my wife, my sister, and friends, but it's still not a lot of people. We don't have a lot of people left to tell. So I wanted to make this post to tell someone else about this cool thing my parents did many years ago, because I really miss them, and hearing the story made me really happy, knowing that they matter to other people as well, that I didn't even know that they just did this stuff like that, never bragged about it or asked for credit. I just feel it deserves to be told, that it deserves to be appreciated somehow. So if you read all that, thank you. Edit. To everyone who took the time to reply, I genuinely thank you so much. This has made my day. I found myself tearing up multiple times at your kind words. Really have no words to express how much this meant to me. Thank you. That's a really sweet story. That's a super kind thing that our parents did for her friend. That is definitely a super sweet story. It's very unfortunate that her parents passed away, and she never found out the truth from their own mouth. But to find out years later is probably a little bittersweet, if you will. But that's there's some really, really amazing people out there in this world, and her parents clearly were some of those people, and obviously it didn't reflect good in her eyes, but it's not like that was her parents' intention. It was more so to protect her friend, and it sounds like her friend really, really appreciated that and remembered that, and it was clearly a very big pillar in her friend's life. I'm sure it's driven her to be a good person as well and do good things for other good people. Everybody goes through struggles. Everyone gets help from other people, so it's sometimes justifying it is a little bit weird, I guess, to kids, so that you don't have to explain too much or embarrass somebody else, or sometimes at the end of the day it's nobody else's business. But that's really really nice story. I'm sure her parents were great people. Well, clearly they were. Alrighty. Story number 5. My dad is divorcing his wife of 17 years because she threw my food away, and I couldn't be more happy. Ooh. Hell no. Throw my food away? My dad's wife and I have had a strained relationship since I was in high school. They turned 27 this summer, so it's been a while, clearly. It got worse once I turned 18. want to preface by saying a relationship wasn't always like this. I love that woman. I forgave her for all the wrongdoings in her and my dad's relationship, all because I wanted a mom so bad. I even ignored all the mean things her family had said to me and my siblings because, again, I just wanted a mom. However, she made it very clear that after I turned 18, she did not want me. In 2017, a week before Christmas, she told me she wasn't my mom and I need to stop treating her as such. Dang. I'll let you guess on how I view Christmas now. Since then, our relationship has been really bad. Actually, non-existent. We no longer talk to each other, even though we lived in the same house. Whoa. So, when I graduated, I went off to college and I did not speak to her. I even moved to Washington for work after college. But unfortunately, 2 years ago, I got laid off, and I have not been able to find a full-time position in my job field since. So my dad let me move back home rent-free. Ever since I moved back in, this woman has been the most unsufferable roommate. She would do little petty things like use all my bath products, hide my keys, dump my detergent down the drain, throw away my food, etc. I could never prove that she was doing that. Every time I mentioned it to my dad, he would make me feel like I was crazy, saying things like, maybe you threw away your bread on accident, or you moved your keys and didn't know. It got to the point where I eventually stopped telling my dad she was doing what she was doing because when you say it one by one, it sounds ridiculous. She threw away my ketchup bottle that I just used. She used the rest of the shampoo I just bought. That'd be annoying. Why is my detergent so low? I got it a month ago. All these things sound petty and childish until you realize she has been throwing away hundreds of dollars of items I have brought into the house monthly. I had no proof of her doing any of this until last year, October. Last year, October, my dad and his wife decided to foster these 3 dogs and then eventually adopt them. 2 of those dogs sleep in our breakfast nook when they were puppies and we all had to work. We couldn't watch them, so my dad put a camera in our laundry room that faces into our kitchen and breakfast nook so that we can watch them even when we're not home. That camera became my saving grace because it records everything. It had caught her throwing away food that I have just bought into the house, dumping away my literal detergent down the sink, using such eating items that had been specifically labeled as mine so no one could touch. I couldn't catch everything, like her hiding my keys and using my soap, but at least I had something. I was finally able to prove to my dad I wasn't crazy and she truly was messing with me. I thought that would be the end of it. My dad said he would handle it, but unfortunately he never did, until last week. My dad came up with a system that every time she threw something away, he would just replace it or pay for it. So last week I bought things to make sandwiches and stir fry. She threw away half those items. I told my dad about it. I told him I don't know everything she threw away, but she definitely threw away some onion and bell peppers that I needed for meals this week, and I don't have the money to just go and replace them. Sad, I know. I mean, yeah, that's not very expensive. That's very unfortunate. He told me he'll handle it, and honestly, when he says that I don't really expect much from him anymore, except this time, he handled it. Heck yeah. He checked the cameras to see what else might have thrown out, and in checking the cameras, he caught her purposely contaminating my food. The pastrami I bought to make sandwiches, she threw it on the ground and then put it right back in the container and put it in the fridge. Ew. A couple months ago, I got really bad food poisoning from food I made. It was so bad I had to go to the hospital. My dad now suspects she's the reason I got food poisoning because what would be the reason to throw food on the floor and then put it back in the fridge? Right. Dad's onto something here. After he saw that, he confronted her on her lunch break about it and told her not to come home. It has been a week. My dad has changed all the locks and started packing her stuff into boxes. He told me she's not allowed to come into this house unless I have a third party present. He's currently looking through all the camera footage that backs up onto his computer to see if she's done anything else that might warrant us having to take her to court. For the first time in years, I feel like I can finally breathe. I finally opened up to my dad about a lot of things her and her family had put me through. We have shared a lot of tears and had a lot of conversations over the last week. We also learned from my older sister and brother that she has done similar things to them, but because they were so minuscule, they never mentioned anything. We all talked about going to therapy, especially my dad, because he realized she has isolated him from a lot of his friends and family as well. I'm sad it took this long, but I'm happy it's finally happened and I get to have my dad's back. Wow. That is an insane story for sure. That's insane. The dad divorcing his wife for 17 years. I mean, it's pretty wild that it took 17 years for that to happen. 2 years for that to happen, but I can understand why the dad would be pretty skeptical about the wife doing this to his daughter, but I mean, if she was doing it for 2 years, that's insane. That's a lot of money that she wasted for this poor girl, and so that's so unfortunate. Personally, there's no way I would have been able to make it 2 years with that situation, and especially living rent free. I would hope she'd be able to save up money to find her own place in that time, but I'm sorry that she's going through that and that her dad took so long to kind of take her side or help step in, but also she clearly didn't like you, and I don't know, I don't understand how you could last that long and living under the same roof of someone that has so much dislike towards you. But secondly, the dad clearly is with a very terrible woman and she needed to go. Now, why she be doing those things is so weird. I don't know what is wrong with you and what would be making you want to do such petty things instead of being an adult and telling her what situation you had with her, or worse, she didn't have anything wrong with her actually, and she was just doing that because she likes being a bad person. I mean, I can't imagine what she was doing to the dad, because if she was doing just these small petty things to the daughter over the series of 2 years, slowly but surely chipping away at money she spent on these items, I can imagine what sort of a long game she's pulled on the dad over a span of almost 20 years. 17 years of this is absolutely absurd. I'm sure that the dad is going through some crazy, looking back into his past of things that happened and going, wait, this doesn't add up. So, it's really awesome that this family was kind of, able to reconvene over something so terrible, but it's such a terrible thing for a family to go through. That's horrible. Especially forgiving her because you want a mom in her life. You wanted her to be your mom so bad, but she just continually treated you bad. Even when you moved away and moved back, she kept treating you terrible. That's horrendous. I hope that you and your dad have a really great relationship from this now, and have rebuilt and rekindled that relationship, and hopefully your dad finds a better woman for sure. Let's go on to these comments now. So starting off with the top comment is Fairly Witchy 91. I'm so glad he finally listened to her and did the right thing. Y'all need family therapy ASAP, that's for sure. Because I sense a lot of resentment, anger, grief that is going to come from this. Finally, having validation after 9 years is huge. I hope you will update with more positive changes. The weirdest thing is that once people like this start getting caught, all the small incidents suddenly make sense. The missing keys, the food, the detergent, turns out Op wasn't connecting random dots. They were seeing a pattern everyone else refused to look at. That was a response. I kind of read them together, but that was the first two comments. One was response. The top comment, one was response. The second comment, I'm glad, but it's absolutely crazy that it took him 9 years. I think you need to put more weight on this betrayal because you deserve better, and honestly, you could have died. All he needed to do was listen to you and trust you. Oh, wow, it took not 2 years, but 9 years. That's, because, I guess they're living together. That's absolutely insane. Wow, 9 years of this. Yeah, I definitely would be putting a lot more emphasis on the betrayal. And someone replied with, from what she described in the final paragraph, it sounds like there may have been some coercive control that plays towards the dad too. It absolutely doesn't absolve him entirely, but it could explain why it took so long. That's what I'm saying. I can't imagine the manipulation that the dad was being put through over this span of 17-year relationship. She's clearly, one to play the long game and continually do things, especially small little things, even dumping someone's conditioner out. And then the public sleep 29 that made the second comment replied with, yeah, I get that. I guess I'm just coming from a place where he was supposed to protect her and he didn't. For me, that would be very disappointing, and I just won't opt to receive a completely fair apology. Absolutely. As her dad, it definitely is his responsibility to take care of her. I recently became a dad, and so I definitely can understand why the daughter would be feeling so betrayed, and I couldn't imagine doing this to my own daughter, so that's absolutely absurd. And I think that commenter is absolutely right. Finally, the third and final comment. They replied to and in checking the cameras where he caught her purposely contaminating my food. The pastrami I had bought to make sandwiches, she threw it on the ground and then put it right back into the container and put it into the fridge. A couple months ago, I got really bad food poisoning from food I made. It was so bad I had to go to the hospital. My dad now suspects she is the reason I got food poisoning, because what would be the reason to throw food on the floor and then put it back in the fridge? Please, for the love of God, go to the police about this, the commenter said. What an absolute piece of shit, disgusting person. Oh yeah, if I were you, not saying to do this, but I would bleach all of her clothes and swap out her hair care products with permanent hair dye. Jeez, what crazy revenge. Someone replied with, I feel rage in that comment, but going to police definitely is the only part that actually makes sense here. Anything else escalates a toxic situation that's finally starting to resolve. Absolutely. Definitely some pretty good get backs. You're great at revenge, Ty G-Lo, but going to the police and, I wouldn't be surprised if, food poisoning and being hospitalized is like attempted murder or something. That'd be pretty insane to report, especially if you have some sort of proof of her doing it again, like you say you do with the video. That definitely seems like a pretty serious situation, especially when you're hospitalized for food poisoning. I definitely recommend that making that police report. Anyways, that was all the stories on there for part 1. I'm going to have more videos of me, continuing this Minecraft building experience, and then, me reading more Reddit stories. Have a great rest of your day. Good night. Adios.